Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings here in Mendham. Anyway, I always hated introductions, entrances, and exits. Never good for me. But anyway, yeah. So the theme of the week is who knows. I don't have a label for it. Very frustrating in a way. Annoying, irritating, disgusting, revolting, just in having to people, just the witnessing people thing, and the way people behave and the way people act and react to things, and just thinking about interaction, how difficult it is to communicate with people who, you're in two different locations and you're attempting to describe the world from your different perspectives, and it really just doesn't seem like it's as possible as it used to be, or something. Like somehow it's just not a practical use of time, something like that. It just feels that way anyway. And things are so backwards, and just the hypocrisies and the duplicities of people, and this whole YouTube thing really did bug me. That so many people were so quick to take this shooting and not appreciate that this was not built out of some some fringe agenda, or a political agenda, or some it wasn't Islamic hate, or it wasn't some right-wing nut fighting the government. It didn't have the smell of any of the usual whack jobs, who have a completely perverse perspective of reality and blah 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 blah. And I'm not saying that the YouTube shooter wasn't an eccentric person who maybe wasn't seeing things correctly, but to me it's kind of clear that she was correct, in the sense that this isn't a world worth living in, kind of a thing, and she decided not to take some of them with her, so to speak. And the them would be this idea that there are all these places where people work and they fuck with people all the time. That's their job. Whether it's an insurance company or some other thing, their job is basically to screw people, give them the worst deal possible, best deal for the company. And this really is our society, and most of the people have a job like that because they really don't pay you money anymore to do honest work. I mean, it's really hard to get an honest job. Most of the people making money are making money because it pays to steal money. Crime does pay now. Honest, fairness kind of thing, you don't get any money for that. Arranging a fair deal, because everybody's basically a middleman in a sense. They're a hired thug for a corporate agenda. And you could just see that, like I said, with the Young Turks are just so obviously feathering their own nest, and they're just not at all objective or fair in their evaluation of that. Maybe we should see this as a statement about society rather than just pretending it's just a crazy person and it doesn't mean anything and it has no significance. Because I would think there would be enough people around who would see that this was sort of a a cry for help, in a sense, or whatever you want to call it, a symptom, an obvious symptom of a civilization in decline, that this could even happen. Even the idea of provoking a woman to, to become a shooter. But anyway, I think it's a subject worth attention in a serious way, and the only kind of attention it got was in people mocking her, speculating she's a transvestite. Just, it was just so rude and crude, and no appreciation for maybe we ought to find out just how bad YouTube treated her for a year, for over a year. Yeah, over a year she attempted to find out and fix it. And maybe we should have some, maybe we should somebody should oblige YouTube to produce evidence that they didn't treat the person like shit. But no one's really saying that, and that's really discouraging. It's probably never going to happen. We're never going to know the truth about exactly how bad this woman was treated. And everybody's okay with that. That's disappointing. But anyway, that was only one of the subjects for the week. So I did the response video on antinatalism, and all of those videos are good for me to make because every time I make one I say something that's, hey, that's not a bad way to say it. That's not a bad metaphor. So in a sense those conversations are productive. Gotta remember I have to call somebody tomorrow. I'm really not that interested in calling people. Anyway, so this leads to the next subject, where the brain has this whole agenda thing where it just pops stuff into your head. So the modern mystic, who I only watch his videos for old time's sake. So it's one of the it's one of the little features in my life that I had grown accustomed to. So it was just part of my routine, and I just don't like that that's been disturbed by him being such a fucking asshole. So I might as well, I think I have his video somewhere around. There's one. And it is just being, so strange. But anyway, usefully strange in the sense that he's on the subject of brain, how we perceive our lives, how life happens to us. And he's saying nothing new, in the sense that years ago we sort of went through this, and some of these observations were made about the fact that we don't initiate. There's no piece of you. No, there is a piece of you. There's no you that sets an agenda. The you is a program that's agenda setting, and you don't get to set it. It has to set it in you. You don't tell it what to do. It decided to do it before you told it what to do. The telling part is just you consciously saying, I'm acknowledging the good program that wants me to be a better person, and so in a sense you're rewarding it by acknowledging it and saying, okay, I get it, I'm supposed to do better. And that just validates that program to say, yes, remind me to be a better person. Remind me to satisfy my obligations and whatever contracts I have made, and do the right thing. And so it's this reminder program that just pops into your awareness now and then. Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I didn't send a card. And that mechanism, you don't control it. You don't decide to do it. Your brain makes the decision long before you know that's who you're going to be. So if you end up being a good person, you didn't do it because you decided to be a good person. It happened because a program inside of you was the good person program, and it won out over the other programs in some sort of subconscious balancing question of which one has more integrity, or which one's more honest, or which one's more decent, or which one's better. And it just happened to be a fact that it won the competition. It floated to the top, and so you ended up being a person capable of having thoughts arise in your head that said things like, well, they're starving people in China. Don't be a wasteful asshole. It just does that. It sends messages to you that are obnoxious. It trolls you, essentially, into being a better person than you would be if it didn't troll you. And then this gets into the whole thing of whether you're optimistic and happy, or whether you're pessimistic and worried, and all that. So these are all just programs. And you can't really change the program on purpose. You have to change the program by allowing the condition inside of you somehow. Right? See, again, I say the word allowing. You don't get to allow. the allow program has to run. So anyway, the whole thing is just kind of it's happening behind the curtain. There is a man behind the curtain, so to speak, but it's not a brain. It's not a man. The man behind the curtain is the algorithm of the human organism, whatever you want to call it. The mechanism by which reward and punishment takes place, and idealism, or that's probably the wrong word. It's probably an anacontavad bleed-in, where that word popped out of my mouth because it's really not what I'm getting to. Where things are valued. Somebody you admire says something. This sentence means more because it's somebody you admire. There's some circumstance where somebody helps you. They say something. The sentences they say, those words mean more because they helped you. It's these associations that essentially dictate how you evolve, how your algorithm evolves. Yes, so the big picture thing is something I've talked about before. It's one credit I've given the modern mystic is that in those previous conversations I came to realize that my power to control my brain is non-existent, but my power to fuck yours up, yes, it's almost unlimited. I mean, if I do this the right way, you know, if I sing and dance the right way, I can completely fuck your brain up. You know, I can do a dance, or I can do something, I can say something, I can, you know, in some way charismatically do something that, you know, triggers some related symbolic association inside your consciousness. Like, you get that. Like, you grew up in a little mountain town or something on the edge of a cliff, and I say something that's metaphorically reminds you of your little hometown or something, you know, and you know, it just wins you over, and you're just, oh, you know, I'm connected, and so I can worm my way into your conscious function, and you'll, like, I was just saying, okay, instead of making this video, I was just going to go to sleep and say, fuck it, I'll make it in the morning, because it just saying I'm neither in the mood, I'm tired. But then when I went to go to sleep, my brain is just going and going. Idiots like the mystic are popping into my head. It's just, man, get out of there, you fucker. And, you know, it just wouldn't slow down enough for me to drift off. So it essentially woke me up as I started thinking. I said, well, I have to do something about this thinking problem, because I'm just going to keep thinking until I somehow say all this crap that I need to say, and so it's just going to harp on me, so fuck it, I'm not going to get to sleep, so make the video instead. So clearly my agenda is being perverted by all the people I interact with, or the things in movies and the commenters or some other little thing, and they'll fuck with me, you know, in some way or another, where you know, they'll be part of the stream that keeps flowing. You know, they'll leave an echo or something behind because they do something so outrageous, or so fundamentally wrong, or so you know, in some way it is in some way outstanding, where my brain has a dissonance about it. It's not resolved. I can't just throw them in the, oh, too silly. You know, there's people you just, you know, you watch 13 seconds of the video, you go, too silly, and you never think about them again for the rest of your life. Or people you meet, it's like they give you your name and they talk, and you know, 4 minutes after you met them, you don't know their name, you don't even know what they look like, because they just didn't do anything. They didn't hit any association buttons, and your brain just said, these aren't memories worth keeping, we're not going to waste space, forget about it. It's not part of your algorithm. And so anyway, so it's an interesting fact, and it's certainly interesting in the idea of how this whole problem of communicating perspectives and communicating thought processes. So I mean, I have a ton of thought processes, and they say things like, in the arguments I'll be making, something simple like, well, I'll use the word reincarnation in a sense, or I'll talk about the fact that I don't want to die 10,000 times to live one full life. Now, obviously, I'm not going to personally live 10,000 lives, and I think that's kind of so obvious that somebody would understand that I'm an atheist. I don't believe I'm going to get reincarnated. And even if I wasn't an atheist, there's just no evidence that there is any reincarnation, that anybody really relives their life from where they left off in a previous life. I mean, only fringe characters believe in that nonsense. So why would they think I'm arguing that it's really me? I'm just really arguing that an individual will go through a similar circumstance as me. Their algorithm will be similar, their associations will be similar, and they will experience, a short life and a brutal death in pretty much the same manner. First off, because they're an organism that doesn't do a whole lot of diversity. Second, because they don't have enough time. A kid is a kid is a kid in a lot of ways. So their reactions are pretty similar and common, and I'm sure their conscious experience of things happening to them is more common. So they don't have a bunch of perspective, a bunch of filters to feel through or to see through. Nothing's really filtered, it's just raw experiences. So anyway, it seemed a simple enough metaphor, but clearly it hangs an awful lot of people. I see them hang on it, like, what, is he arguing for reincarnation? No, I'm just using it as a practical metaphor. It's practically like that. It's the same thing. You can't make enough of a distinction for it to be important. So in a sense, when the masters that owned the slaves, were sitting drinking their tea and, listening to the violin music and blah blah blah, at the same time their slaves were being brutalized. So there's clearly two conflicting events taking place at the same time. And in the real world, you can essentially blend those two events and come up with a net product. So you can understand that these values do add and subtract, and that yes, it won't be felt by individual A, the whip of the slave getting whipped, and the slave won't enjoy the nice music and the comfortable thoughts and the relaxation and the peace of mind that everything's okay. You won't enjoy any of that. But the fact is, the two experiences happen. Alright, so anyway, I just think that's kind of, everybody should be able to follow along, but clearly they can't. So I mean, this is part of the difficulty of communication, is somehow I'm just not getting the sense across that, the truth is that this is all this stuff is happening. These are all checkers, and they make distinctions between that checker is special because I'm going to call him Jimmy, and that one's stupid because I'm going to call him Bratty. I mean, it just doesn't make much sense to bother with that, because the basic function of the checkers is all that's really relevant, and the basic function of the feeling organism is feelings. There's just nothing else to play for here. So that comes to, like I said, you say other things like, you think to yourself, I think to myself. You say something like, there's no winning, there's only not losing. Or, the key to the game is to not lose. Or something like, not losing is winning. Then all that kind of stuff makes sense to me. I mean, clearly, when I think about it, yes, all the stuff associated with losing, which is having the bad luck, having the bad death, having the bad experiences, clearly those are the only things that are really a problem. Everything else is fixable, right? I mean, being warm enough and having enough food and having enough simple comforts and enough capacity to function. So all you really need, and what you don't need, what is really disastrous, is your house burns down, or your hard drive fails, or it's all the bad things that are that's the stuff in your way. You don't really need a whole bunch of good. You just need an absence of bad to play a pretty good game. And now that gets me to the big subject that the mystic is put off the table, is the idea that he's doing a little bit of self-help thing, where he's basically explaining to people from his experience, apparently, that there's some need to do this simplification thing. Just keep your life simple, stupid. And I tend to agree with that, but I don't tend to think he really is that simple. So I think it's a big ball of hypocrisy there, because I don't think he's nearly taken enough of his blood footprint out of his indulgences. I think he's perfectly capable of being quite self-indulgent, because he has the means to be. And so I think it's just sort of insincere. He's not exactly eating gruel. So, the minimal thing. But not that you have to go all the way anyway, so I'm not arguing for that. So he's clearly been able to take the sillier ambitions out of his life, or the sillier needs. He doesn't need to go to Singapore to get a haircut anymore. But he seems to still talk about it fondly, so there seems to be some desire still left in him to, I suppose, if there was a free ticket, he'd grab it. So anyway, yeah, I'm not being very good at, so that's the point. You really, if you want to influence brains, apparently you really have to be kind of careful how you do things. You have to do it in a really, you have to, sometimes I don't do that. A little sloppy, so sorry about that. So yeah, I'm very agreeable to this suggestion you could make to people that has been made forever, and people don't pay too much attention. I mean, since Benjamin Franklin's time or something, they've been saying things like, well, if you've got your health, you've got everything. And we hear that, but we really don't think it. Because we say, no, I don't got the trophy wife, I don't got a lot of shit, so I don't, health isn't enough. I need more than that. And sort of the lesson learned, I think, by a lot of people who have reached some age of maturity is that, yeah, that probably is true, because all of this other stuff just gets complicated. The real game is you're an addicted organism, and the best thing you can do is be addicted to a good drug, a simple drug. Don't get addicted to the expensive, complicated drugs. Get addicted to something readily available and really simple, and that'll be to your best interest. So try. So the word try means wait for your brain to allow a thought to arise that has something to do with, yes, nag me about being a better person. And when you hear your brain do that, you have to reward it by saying, yes, I know I don't like you right now. I don't really want to hear this nag, but yes, you're a good program. Good program. You have to pet it and reward it. And that way it'll keep recurring. And then you'll get used to it being there. And you'll almost find it fun to play with the little naggy voice that encourages you to do better. And that will be very good for your productivity, both for yourself in terms of recognizing simple facts like exercise a little discipline, don't eat too much, to try to do some exercise, all those little things that are really important, especially when you're young. So again, but it's really hard to convey these ideas to people. So I guess that's sort of what the Mystic video kind of rang of. The Mystic's never been very ambitious about accomplishing anything with videos. And so it's kind of interesting that he's overtly, apparently now, trying to accomplish something. And trying to persuade people, essentially, or affect them in some way to change their behavior. And it's just kind of funny because, like I said, he's always been too glib to give a fuck, and too self-interested, I guess, and too self-controlled in terms of his own little programs running about how he's, keeping his own world in order. And that seems so much more important to him than any worry about other people's worlds getting out of hand. And so he seems to feel some need to let people know it's all right, you can control and you can fix. But he's doing it in this completely myopic manner where he's basically telling the slaves, calm down, it's okay. You can endure your slavery comfortably, as long as you don't overreact. Don't overreact to the whip. Don't let him get. Don't let the whip master troll you, and get you in trouble. Don't let your emotions get out of control. Certainly don't get your expectations. Don't let them go crazy on you. Just be happy. There's no maggots in your food, and settle for that. Yeah, it's all good. And that's what it sounds like, right? It just sounds like somebody who says, well, people are getting too rambunctious and rebellious in terms of saying this society isn't nearly good enough. And they're almost talking like they could revolt or something. I almost see that in his agenda. That the only reason why he's doing this is because he somehow thinks, even though he says, oh, there's no chance that the people will rise up or do anything. I think in the back of his head he thinks there is a chance. But anyway, regardless of what his intent is, how sincere, in terms of whatever sincere even means, whether he's doing it just as some, foxhole thing. He's coming towards the end of his life, like me. And he's just trying to clean it up a little bit and make it look like, oh, I did a couple of good things for people. I made those videos telling them not to get too fat and, try to not get crazy about their ambitions and understand that they really shouldn't waste $12,000 on a 2-week vacation because it's only going to be 2 weeks and it's really not going to be that spectacular. And, it's better to get new shingles on the roof. There's better ways to invest in your future than to squander it on the present, that kind of thing. So, bigger picture is, obviously I keep harping on this idea that, yes, we have to manage our own personal life, and we have to find some sort of joy in our life, or we go postal and just shoot people and blow our brains out. So you have to have some mechanism to stop that from being all you get. Like, oh, well, this is my solution. I go postal and blow my brains out. I mean, yes, okay, it's better than just blowing your brains out, and it's probably, in most cases, I mean, it depicts it, but, you have to pick the right targets, clearly. But anyway, never mind that. Clearly that's not a great finish. So, I mean, you do want to sort of feel like you're at least pushing a car that has a chance that the engine will start and it'll go. And you want to just do your last little, you want to give your push, and maybe somebody else is going to have to push it the rest of the way, but your push was critical to keeping that car going so you could jump start it, get it going. And so you want to at least have that kind of feeling, that you made a contribution to the cause. And so the bigger picture for your life clearly is your impact on the world, what you did to other people's brains, and it's clearly not an easy thing to do because you don't, it's so hard to know. I mean, you don't want to influence people in negative ways and have them go postal. You don't want to influence people in a way that the programs that harp at them and tell them they're not doing good enough, and oh, you're too fat and you're too lazy and you're too this. You don't want those programs to beat the crap out of them so they can't get anything done ever again because they're thinking too much about how much they're failing. Because I'm setting some standard which is very low, but it might appear high to them. So, you know, it's so, you have to take such responsibility for this "I want to influence you" thing. Influencing people is a powerful thing, and most people just don't take it seriously at all. They just go out into the world and influence people all over the place. You know, they let their kids influence people. They let all kinds of things. The dog shits on the neighbor's sidewalk, and lots of influences. And they don't really take any account for any of it in terms of whether it's a productive influence. I'll have my dog shit on his sidewalk, and that will enhance his life. You know, that's not likely what's going to happen. And it seems like a lot of the energy for influence is incredibly negative. Like, people are just doing all this, you know, trying to tear things down and break things. You know, very little effort to fix things. So again, this is another theme of the videos over the years on this channel. Has been this argument that breaking is easy, it's for retards, it's you know, it's not really the game. Fixing is the game. That's the one. If you feel like you want to be a player, you know, and you want a good game, that's the game you want to be in, is trying to fix things. You know, breaking government isn't the answer. Fixing government's the answer. You know, walking away isn't the answer. Walking towards is the answer. I mean, we have to deal with it. Dealing with it is the answer, not pretending everybody can walk away and it gets fixed all by itself, because that certainly can't happen. And using excuses like nobody can fix it, it's the nature of human beings, the world, Darwin says, blah blah, you know, all of that fucking history proves. You know, history doesn't prove anything. It's not complete, obviously. And obviously there's a difference between measuring the competency of a toddler in kindergarten or 6th grade, or then going to high school and then going to college. At all those stages you could be an imbecile in 6th grade and you could be a genius in 8th grade. It's just the truth. And clearly, if we actually do ever mature to complete our education, we might be a substantially smart species. We certainly have the capacity to be that. So there's no reason to say history teaches that we're always stupid. No, it doesn't. That everything is always a failure. No, it doesn't. There hasn't been nearly a long enough history. It's a really short history when you look at it, and most of the history we spent in diapers. So because I couldn't play football, you know, when I was still wetting my pants, doesn't mean I won't be able to play football later. You know, this stupid judgment that I'm going to declare the human race something because, you know, it's still in diapers, and I'm going to say he'll never be an engineer. I mean, that's just retarded. And that's what so many people do as a cop-out. They just walk away from this idea that there is a game here, and a really important game, and all of our influences could matter. I mean, we can't know they can't matter, and certainly the trolls will keep telling you you're incapable of doing anything. We're going to win, but that's just talk. Okay, they'll try to defeat you, but they don't have any real weapons except preying on your own insecurity, preying on your own doubts that might linger inside of you, that maybe I'm on the wrong track, or maybe I haven't quite got, you know, I'm not really quite competent, I'm not the best bus driver, I'm not the best CPA, I'm not the, you know, I'm not exactly up to the game I need to be up to for this job or for this challenge of influencing people. And they'll just prey on that and defeat you and attempt to defeat you. So it's just like a, you know, you can imagine that in, you know, if wars were more personal like they were in the old days, where you actually had to go up to a guy and smash his brains in with a hammer, I'm sure they mocked each other and tried to do things to defeat the other army, you know, some antics of some kind to try to create a distraction. You know, just the idea of being able to march up, like the British, they would just march up to you and just say, try to shoot me, fucker, try to shoot me, I'm standing up right here, shoot me if you can, fucker, was probably pretty intimidating. and all that is some part of the unnerving, beating of the drums, like the helicopters in Apocalypse Now. You know, they were just trolling the Vietnamese, right? They're just trolling them, so they could weaken them, you know, distract them, harm their game. So yeah, you can't get caught up in that. I'm not saying that's the biggest obstacle to doing this right, because obviously you can't even know what right is, and that's the catch of this thing, is you can never know. Even if my motives are right, I'm deliberately and willfully trying to do it the right way, you still can't be sure you're doing it the right way, that you're saying the right thing, that you're motivating people in the proper way, that you're, you know, because right has to do in the end with what works. And the irony is, trolling works. The irony is that a lot of stuff that doesn't have any merit, theoretically, that's junk as a weapon, does work in our kind of twisted civilization. Yeah, it's hard to know, and so it just adds to the burden of it in a sense, because it is a bit of a burden to be, to try to figure out how to live your life where you can be minimally satisfied and be socially productive for the causes you understand to be valuable. To fix a future. And then that gets into this whole other thing of motivation. I've been over this one before too, is that part of my fact-checking program, okay, so we call him the fact checker. He's not really on my side. He's some obnoxious conservative cunt or something who pops up and just says, you're being, self-interested. You're only saying that because of, all of that kind of crap, where, clearly what's my interest. And I have to concede that a big part of my original understanding of how life is fail is the fact that my sensibilities are, this is unplayable for somebody rational. Now, clearly people can dispute what the word rational means, but clearly it's playable for a lot of people. They glibly can march through it, and it's completely a playable game, because they just don't count for any of the suffering imposed. But clearly what they're capable of doing is accepting a tremendous amount of self-torment, I would call it, or something, punishment or pain and suffering, to continue playing. And like even the mystic had bypass surgery, a rather bold risk, okay, for a guy who's only semi-interested in his existence. Now, maybe he did it for his wife, maybe he did it for a lot of other reasons, but it's clearly you're going to have to go through a lot of really uncomfortable days. For you're paying a price, is all I'm saying. And I'm like really obnoxious to that price paying thing. So that's the simple. On the simplest level, I don't want to come back to this planet and play this obnoxious game over and over and over again as one of the people who doesn't enjoy it at all. So I could metaphor it to being seasick, and there's people who enjoy boating, okay, and it's fun, and it's bouncing in the waves, and there's people who are just horribly sick. And I don't want to keep coming back as the guy on the, on the rail. I don't want to keep being the loser, in terms of I can't in any way say this was a worthwhile experience, that the net value was positive. It would be insane. I can't do it on a subjective, emotional level, and I certainly can't do it on an intellectual level. Alright, but the problem with that is see, that's the source of my understanding. The source of my understanding is right from the egg. You know, I didn't have to be taught anything. I didn't have to change my perspective because some influence from the external world instructed me that I'm being an asshole and I'm being an optimist and I'm being really ignorant to not appreciate all the other people who are going to pay for my comfort. I'm comfortable, they're going to be uncomfortable. I'm the, you know, I'm living in the big house, I'm drinking the tea, I'm listening to the violin music, and I'm just pretending that all the infrastructure that makes that possible, that suffering, is somehow worth it. And, you know, but I didn't have to be instructed. No one had to point that out. Nobody had to look out the window and say, look at those slaves suffering. If we add those slaves suffering to us being comfortable, that's not a good thing. Okay, it's not a good feeling. If I blend my feelings with their feelings, you still end up with a pretty crappy feeling. It's not good enough. So I didn't need somebody to explain it to me. And so that's a huge disadvantage for me to explain to somebody else because I didn't acquire it through an interaction with human beings that inspired me to know better. So I don't have any model for how to convey something that seems so obvious. You know, you don't make babies and put them on tight ropes over spiky pits. Why would he do that? And give them a little stupid umbrella and say, have fun, kiddo. Why the hell would you do that? To get to another side where all they win is dying. You know, essentially. I mean, a few little, ha ha ha, happy adventures. I got a new car. I did this. You know, stuff that wears off in about 4 days. You know, nothing, no enduring accomplishment or sense of satisfaction. They're still going to have to go through trials and tribulations, even if they walk the tightrope really well. But certainly if they fall off, they're in big trouble. Why would you do that? That's illogical. So that was, you know, essentially the, you know, those are the Ephilist antinatalism videos, and you're just coming up with all these metaphors for how it is illogical to buy life at the store. It's just something you don't even pick up off the shelf. It's so preposterously expensive. And when you really think about it, like if you're not going to eat the cake you're making, it just can't make any sense. It's the waste of it. Yeah, well, anyway. I've made those arguments, so I'm not trying to make the arguments in this video. I'm just arguing about how to create weapons, intellectual, logical weapons that actually do dent people, and then cause, maybe, in the future, there's enough of a dent where keeps rattling. You know, you bent their fender and it's rubbing against the wheel and they keep hearing it rub, 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 and they keep thinking about that fucking guy who dent my fender. So it just keeps arising into their consciousness, rub, 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 you know. And sooner or later it just badgers them into becoming a different person. So anyway, that's, you know, what's on my mind, and so it's been you know, belched. And so maybe I can just relax for a while and say, okay, that was enough of that for this moment in time, and maybe next time I'll phrase it in some other magical way, wearing a silly hat or something, and it'll be more effective as a bit of conveyance. But anyway, it'd be nice to have those conversations. I mean, I do miss that about the mystic. He's just such a silly little child in terms of his preposterously exaggerated, you know, ability to deal with certain things. I mean, it's just so it's, you know, it has to be. Everything's cookie cutter precise, and if you're a little bit off, you can't get in the door. It's just, you know, ugh, so stupid. Anyway, so it'd be nice to have somebody else who's capable of having these conversations. But anyway, I don't have any of those available, so I'll just have to talk to myself. Which is something I've intended to do, just because I think I can think I can play both sides adequately to provide an interesting conversation. Yeah, probably. But anyway, that's for some future adventure. So that's probably enough. It takes care of the mostly what's at this moment it's going to be a recurring theme, because as I've stated before, I think the arguments are solid. It's just putting him in some sort of arrangement on the plate that gets people to, ooh, I want one of those, you know, that kind of thing. It's just a garnish or something. I got to figure out how to garnish, you know, to make it more appealing. You know, say I made a pie today, and you know, there's this process. You know, you put the top of the pie and all that kind of stuff, and then usually you do all this little crimpy stuff and all this bullshit. And I said, fuck that. I just folded it over and crumpled it up and said, fuck that. It's just a fucking apple pouch. What am I doing this bullshit for? What does this bullshit have to do with it? It has nothing to do with it. You know, so I'm just, you know, I am obnoxious to this idea that everything has to be, you know, done in this way, you know, or it's invalid. You know, it has to have these stupid, frivolous, pointless waste bits on it. I have to put waste on it, or people won't see it as right. Is it, you don't have enough waste in that. It really is a good commentary on our whole society, right? It's basically people reject doing something unless it has waste in it. It's like Patreon. Oh, that's great because I get to waste more money. It's an excellent idea. That's so cool. I get to flush some money down the toilet. And without the flushing the money down the toilet part, I couldn't understand it. So yeah, I mean, I can't just donate money. I need you to create a whole infrastructure that, for me, so I can give part of the money to somebody who didn't earn it at all and has nothing to do with the cause I want to support. I want to just basically waste some money. And, you know, that's how, and they want salesmen. I want a salesman to come up to me in the store and sell me, you know, a car, or sell me something, and do all this talking and gibberish that has nothing to do with the truth. And somehow I feel like, oh yeah, that's so much a better deal when I've paid somebody to convince me. I love, oh, the commercials are fantastic. I love paying all that extra money to try to convince dummies to buy something. I love paying extra for everything so we can have more and more commercials. I mean, the waste, it's, you know, and people really can't even imagine a world where we don't have all this waste in it. So it's just maybe that everybody just has jobs doing this little pie crimping thing. Maybe everybody's job is some stupid, frivolous, disconnected mush that has nothing to do with substance at all. It's just about the fucking facade. It's just about the impression. It's just about the cover of the fucking book. And the irony is, in my opinion, when you look at books, you know, published by real companies that spend real money, and the covers are crap. So few books have a cover that you're just like, well, what did they have their 7-year-old kid do that with Photoshop? That cover sucks. You know, they put their whole name all over the book or so. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you can't put something a little more interesting than your fucking name on the cover? I mean, even if you put your whole name on the cover, couldn't you do it with like an image in the background and have your name, you know, embossed into the image? I mean, you can't do anything creative, but it really is, I find it it's like movies with the stupid titles. Like we spent $500 million on a movie and it's titled Doo Doo. You know, you're just like, what? Yeah, anyway. So anyway, I think that's probably enough. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, till the next time. And such. And so forth and whatnot. These personal notes. Weather's been just crappy here. I mean, yes, it's nice that it's not hard winter, but it just isn't doing the spring thing at all. I mean, we keep having snow, and it's just cold, and it's wet as fuck. And it's just, you know, I haven't been able to do any gardening at all. Nothing. I mean, it's fucking 8 days into April. I mean, this is crazy. Anyway, so it's really slowing me down a little, just because, you know, can't go anywhere because you just sink into the ground and you can't, you know, it's too much work because you have to keep, your feet keep sticking into the ground. It's just so fucking spongy. I'm just making excuses. It's not quite that bad, but it's just unpleasant. You just avoid it because it's unpleasant. So, but anyway, so hopefully I'll be able to get out, maybe I'll make some walk and talk videos or something. Maybe the weather gets a little better, do something, you know, something. So, I think there was something else I wanted to, yeah, there. Okay, well, yeah, we'll put Nassim, just for the ending. You know, maybe I can, you know, I don't think I have the sound on, so she can dance a little. So, I mean, this isn't exactly something you say, oh, this is a huge threat, what a murderous, blah, 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 right? She was driven to it. She wasn't driving there in her life. Her life wasn't saying, I'm going to inevitably be a whack job that shoots people. Clearly, I think her life was going somewhere else, and it was YouTube who, you know, trolled her. They trolled her into it. You know, but whatever. Sand. I like the long hair. That's pretty good. Yeah, I can go for that. Does charm me. Works. Anyway, so till next time and such.